Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros met with the Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, with the aim of strengthening cooperation mechanisms and the bonds of friendship between the two countries. The national strike and demonstrations called by the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador enters its third day. The struggle ratifies the 10-point plan of demands on economic issues and rights. The U.S. government admits in an official document financing 46 military biological laboratories in Ukraine. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, held a meeting this Wednesday with the Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The meeting took place at the Royal Palace of Qatar, during which the leaders reviewed bilateral relations with a view to strengthening cooperation mechanisms and the bonds of friendship between the two countries. In this context, the Venezuelan president and the Qatari emir discussed the promotion of common projects, as well as the vision of regional and international issues. The Venezuelan head of state visits Qatar as part of an international tour to promote construction of a multipolar world and boost cooperation in areas such as science, technology, agriculture, transportation, energy, tourism, and culture. Also, we have more information. This Wednesday, high government officials and representatives from diplomatic missions in Antigua and Barbuda commemorated the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Representatives from Latin America and the Caribbean nations posted in the island country attended a flag-raising ceremony held to mark the special occasion. Among the high government officials present were the Honorable Gaston Brownie, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Venezuelan Ambassador to Antigua and Barbuda, Carmen Velázquez, ambassadors representing Cuba, the Dominican Republic, the People's Republic of China, as well as other officials of the country's defense force and staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Prime Minister Brownie highlighted the unbreakable state of bilateral relations between both countries.
This year marks an important milestone as we commemorate the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Antigua and Barbuda and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. On this very day in 1982, Antigua and Barbuda and Venezuela formally established diplomatic relations, laying the groundwork for multifaceted cooperation and unbreakable ties. While the world has significantly changed since 1982, the Antigua and Barbuda-Venezuela relationship and friendship continue to remain ironclad, and I emphasize ironclad. In other words, unbreakable.
The Peruvian Congress decided to initiate proceedings against the Vice President Dina Boluarte and is requesting 10 years of disqualification for allegedly violating the Constitution. The report declaring the constitutional complaint against Boluarte admissible was approved with 9 votes in favor, 3 against, and 2 abstentions. The decision comes after the General Comptroller's Office of the Republic issued a report stating that the official is accused of having incurred in the violation of Article 126 of the Constitution. Boluarte is accused of having signed documents as president of the Apurimac Departmental Club in spite of her position as minister. For the time being, the designation of a deponent is expected, a hearing to listen to the arguments of Boluarte and of the complainants. The final report must be submitted to the Permanent Commission and then to the full Parliament. Union organizations of the education sector in Uruguay are mobilizing in defense of public education and in rejection of the deterioration of their working conditions. The Educators Union is mobilizing as part of a national strike to demand a budget increase for the sector. The demands respond to budget cuts of at least $80 million for the years 2021 and 2022, which caused salary losses of 8% and the elimination of jobs. The teachers also criticized the non-compliance with the collective bargaining agreements and the government's intention of an educational transformation without the teacher participations. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Ecuador, demonstrations in the framework of the indefinite national strike called by the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities against the policies of Guillermo Lazo's government continue on its third day. Different social movements and civil society take to the streets in rejection of citizen insecurity, the increase of basic product and fuel prices, budget cuts in education and health, among others. Transportation workers joined the call to demand a revision of heavy transport rates and subsidies. On the other hand, their solidarity with the rallies and gatherings in several cities of the country, calling for dialogue in search of solutions to the demands of the people. Regarding the indefinite national strike in Ecuador, President Guillermo Lazo indicated that he is willing to open a dialogue with the protesters. In his official Twitter account, the Ecuadorian president said, "We continue working for Ecuador. We have the doors open to dialogue, but we will not give in to violent groups that seek to impose the rules." On another tweet, the president also said that the protest agendas of the different social groups are legitimate, but they cannot be based on deception and the search for violence. Now we need to work together from Ecuador. Finally, the head of state said on another tweet, "We coordinate actions that meet the request of the different social organizations. We cannot allow violence or chaos in a country that is reactivating after 2 years of pandemic." The U.S. Federal Reserve announced on Wednesday the most aggressive interest rate increase in nearly 30 years, raising the benchmark borrowing rate by 0.75 percentage points as it battles against surging inflations. The Fed's policy settling Federal Open Market Committee reaffirmed that it remains strongly committed to returning inflation to its 2% objective and expects to continue to raise the key rate. Until recently, the central bank seemed set to approve a 0.5- percentage point increase, but economists said the rapid surge in inflation put the Fed behind the curve. Committee members now see the federal funds rate ending the year at 3.4%, up from the 1.9% projection in March, according to the median quarterly forecast.
The labor market is extremely tight, and inflation is much too high. Against this backdrop, today the Federal Open Market Committee raised its policy interest rate by 0.75 percentage point and anticipates that ongoing increases in that rate will be appropriate. The labor
Now we address other topics. The United States government admitted it maintains military biological labs on Ukrainian territory as part of an agreement with that nation. In a document published on its website, the U.S. Defense Department lists a set of military projects which will be aimed at reducing the threat of a production of weapons of mass destruction. The publication also details that during the last 20 years, the United States has provided support to 46 biological facilities in Ukraine that will be destined to collaborate with nuclear and biological and radiological security. These facilities were developed in secret, and their existence was repeatedly denied by Washington until the Russian military operation exposed them. This Wednesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping held a phone conversation with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. During their conversation, Xi noted that since the beginning of this year, bilateral relations have maintained a sound development momentum in the face of global turbulence and changes. The Chinese president said China is willing to work with Russia to promote solidarity and cooperation among emerging market countries and developing nations and push for the development of the international order and the global governance towards a more just and reasonable direction. For his part, Putin said Russia supports the China-proposed global security initiative and opposes any force trying to interfere in China's internal affairs on such pretexts as Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And the 25th St. Petersburg International Economic Forum opened on Wednesday in Russia's second-largest city. Under the theme of New Opportunities in a New World, this year's forum is attended by representatives of more than 90 countries and regions, according to the forum's organizers. The participants will discuss issues regarding the global and Russian economies, digitalization, and information security. While addressing the forum's plenary session, Russian President Vladimir Putin will assess the current global situation and outline the future direction of the country's economic development. Since 1997, the forum has become a leading global platform for the business community to discuss critical economic issues facing Russia, emerging markets, and the world. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Heat wave intensifies in Spain as it reached its highest peak this Wednesday. Weather experts report that temperatures reached 43 degrees Celsius in some regions of the country. The authorities specify that this is the worst heat wave felt in the nation in the last 20 years, and also said that the national phenomenon will extend until Saturday. The areas most affected by the high temperatures are Andalusia, Aragon, Castilla y León, Castilla y La Mancha, Extremadura, Madrid, and Catalonia. The experts explain that in the coming days, the clash of cold and warm air masses will lead to lower temperatures. Spanish meteorologists warned that in the future more heat waves could develop. The spokesperson for the state meteorological agency, Rubén del Campo, assured that heat waves in the country have doubled during the last decade and clarified that in the next 30 years, temperatures will continue to rise to the point that current levels will be considered cold. The Climate and Health Group is the IS Global Institute warned that the heat wave-related deaths in the country could exceed 14,000 between 2035 and 2064. The World Health Organization said on Wednesday Europe remains the epicenter of the global monkeypox outbreak, which poses a real risk, with more than 1,500 cases reported in the region. The UN health body already announced on Tuesday that it will hold an emergency meeting next week to determine whether to classify the outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern.
Europe remains the epicenter of this escalating outbreak, with 25 countries reporting more than 1,500 cases, or 85% of the global total. The magnitude of this outbreak poses a real risk. The longer the virus circulates, the more it will extend its reach, and the stronger the disease's foothold will get in non-endemic countries.
Nigerian soldiers have found one of the more than 200 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram group 8 years ago in the conflict-torn northeast, the military said on Wednesday. The military said on Twitter that troops of patrol had found the young woman, Nari Ngoshe, carrying a baby near the Ngoshe village on Tuesday. The attack on a girls' boarding school in the town of Chibok in 2014 and the mass kidnapping that followed sparked international outrage and a global campaign called Bring Back Our Girls. Of the 276 pupils aged 12 to 17 who were abducted by the militants on April 2014, 57 of the girls managed to escape by jumping off trucks they had been herded on. Since the Chibok school mass abduction, militants have carried out several mass abductions and deadly attacks on schools in northern Nigeria. Over 3,000 people in Burkina Faso, mostly children, fled the northern village of Seitenga after an attack carried out by unidentified assailants. According to eyewitnesses, the carnage began late Saturday in this town in northern Burkina Faso, a few kilometers from Niger.
They came at night. I was in my house in a room and I heard the shots. They raided all the stores. They came with 2 vehicles and a bunch of tricycles and started shooting. They were killing people everywhere, everywhere. That's why I moved out the next morning.
Thousands of Congolese demonstrated in the streets of Goma to protest against Rwanda's support for the M23 rebels and show their support for the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo engaged on several fronts in the east of the country.
Rwanda has been attacking us for 20 years. Today we ask for the vigilance of the population. Today we all stand up for the cause of the nation, and we are behind the FARC, our armed forces, who are fighting to put the enemy out of action. Rwanda is attacking us, and today we tell Kagame to stop playing with the Congolese.
Our government must know that the Congolese army is infiltrated. All these infiltrators must be driven out of the army and the police. If they succeed, then the DRC will have the strength to beat these Rwandan soldiers who are causing us so much suffering.
And TeleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters. Since more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are being heard in other farther away nations. These parameters are in place since June the 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. This new multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to their audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.